Hi everyone, welcome to another Yarn Scrap Friday with me, Laura, and Happy New Year, Happy 2017. I can't believe I am now doing crochet tutorials in 2017, it's crazy. But in this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to turn last week's Tunisian Basket Weave stitch into a little zipper cosmetic bag or clutch purse, whatever you want to use it for, like this one here. I've got some many in there. I'm going to show you how to crochet in a zip and hopefully how to line the bag as well. So for this tutorial I'm actually using a 4 weight yarn, so that's an Aran worsted weight yarn weight of 4, and with that I'm using a 5mm Tunisian crochet hook. Now Tunisian crochet hook is longer than a normal crochet hook. Some of you asked last week whether you can use a normal crochet hook. You won't be able to do that for this project, I'm afraid, because a normal crochet hook is can only carry about that many stitches, because with Tunisian crochet you have to carry a lot of stitches like knitting, and as you can see here we're using a lot of stitches at once, so you need a hook at least this long. But I managed to pick these up off Amazon, so hopefully you can get hold of some Tunisian straight crochet hooks. But this is a 5mm to go with my 4 weight yarn, and with that we're going to need a pair of scissors and a yarn tapestry needle as well for sewing in those ends and for sewing the bag. And if you want to turn it into a zipper bag, then I recommend picking up a zip. Now this zip here is just a closed-ended zip, so it doesn't come undone at the end, and this is a 20cm zip, so that's about 7.5 inches. That's just 7.5 inches, about 8 inches, 20 centimeters. But it really depends on the type of yarn you're using, what size zip you are going to need. So once you've made your first rectangle, then that's a good time to pick up your zip or choose a zip you want to use. And you want to make sure that the end of your work matches up where your zip ends, and the same where the stopper ends there matches there, because these little overlapped bits will tuck down on the inside of the bag. Okay, so a zip. And also if you want to line your bag, then I recommend picking up some material. You don't need this much, obviously, you just need a little bit, just enough to line your bag, so double the size of your rectangle. And I don't know what material I'm going to use yet, so I'll have to come back and show that when I line the bag. But hopefully last week you followed along with my Tunisian Basket Weave stitch tutorial, but we'll recap this week as well briefly. But if you want to go check out that video, I'll put the link in the description or over this video somewhere. But we're going to be making 2 rectangles of the Tunisian Basket Weave stitch, and we're working to units of 4, working to the 4 times table. So this swatch here, this little rectangle here, is worked to 9 times 4, so we got 36 stitches. And when we chain 36 at the beginning, or however many 4 times table stitches you need, we are working to the exact 4 times table, not adding any chains at the beginning or anything like that. So this is cut up into 9 lots of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's 9 times 4, which is 36, and each set little basket weave square is 4 stitches, and we're alternating between Tunisian simple stitches and Tunisian purl stitches, and we're doing that for this particular pattern. I've done that for 3 rows, so over once, back, over once, back, over once, back, so 3 sets before we then change to alternating the other way around. This bag was made with sets of 2 rows, so forward and back before I alternate it, so it creates a smaller basket weave. But we're going to be doing it with sets of 3, but I'll show you as we go. Let's begin. So like I said, we're going to be making 2 of these rectangles, so I'm going to make another one of these and show you. So the first thing to do is get your yarn and chain 36 or however many stitches you need in your 4 times table. In my case it's 9 times 4, which is 36. So you can choose to chain initially with a normal crochet hook if you find that easier with the same size, but I'm just going to use my Tunisian crochet hook. Chain 36, so 1, 2, 3, 35 and 36. So I've chained 36. Now it's a good idea to do at least 1 set of Tunisian stitches before you measure this against your zip, because if I bring my zip in now and measured that up to the end of my zip, you probably see that it can be much longer. So when you're chaining, it's always quite inaccurate, so it can end up smaller. So it's a good idea to do a couple of rows first, just to get yourself into the pattern, to know how long you need to make your chains. But I've chained 36 with this yarn for my 20 centimeter zip, and what we're going to do now is divide this up into sets of 4. Now this is the only time in crochet, and I said this in last week's video, where we count the loop on our hook. That is going to count as a stitch, and we're going to skip this first chain here. So this first chain just under your loop on your hook, we're going to skip that and work into this second stitch from our hook. We're going to put our hook into there, we're going to bring the yarn through, and we're going to keep that loop on our hook, and that's going to be our second stitch. Okay, so now we've got 2 stitches. We're going to do that all the way across, so we're going to put our hook into the next chain, bring the yarn through, then leave that on our hook, then into the next chain, bring the yarn through, leave that on our hook, and these are going to be our stitches. We're going to do that all the way across, and we should end up with 36 loops on our hook, so 36 stitches. Okay. Okay, so I'm just coming up to the very last chain, bring the yarn through and keep it on your hook. So we end up with something that looks a little bit like knitting, and we should have 36 loops. So we chain 36, we keep the loop on our hook and skip that first one, it works out the same. So we end up with 36. This is our 4 times table, 9 times 4. So if you want to adjust this pattern, you'll need to work to the 4 times table. So you may need to do 10 times 4 or 8 times 4. It really depends on what yarn you're using and what zip size you have. But now we're going to do what I call a reverse row, and to do that with Tunisian crochet is we always have to do a chain 1 at the beginning. Don't forget this little chain 1 on the return. So hopefully you've been practicing from last week. So we're going to yarn over, bring the yarn through the first stitch only, and that's our little chain 1. Then all the way across from then on, we just yarn over and pull through 2 like a really big crochet stitch. So we yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Try and keep it quite loose, you don't want it too tight. These should be able to freely move up and down. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and we're going to do that all the way back to the beginning, just pulling through 2 until we end up with 1 loop. Pull through 2, 2, pull through 2. So I'm going a little bit fast in this video, I do apologise, but last week I did a video in more detail on the Tunisian Basket Weave stitch, so do check that out if this is brand new to you and you missed that tutorial. Okay, so just coming back to the beginning, last few pull through 2s, you end up with 2 left, yarn over, pull for the last 2, and then you just got 1 loop left. And this is what you end up with. You end up with these little vertical bars going all the way across. See these like little ladder-like vertical bars? And the first 2 rows of Tunisian crochet is the same for any stitch that you do. You always have to do these first 2 rows before you begin. But what we're going to do now is we're going to divide these stitches up into 4. We're going to do 4 simple stitches and 4 purl stitches, then 4 simple, 4 purl. So what we do, we always skip the first vertical bar here, which is right on the end. We always skip that, we never work into that, because our first loop's already done, it's on our hook, you see, so effectively that's our stitch number 1. So we find the second vertical bar, and we put our hook underneath that. So just put your hook under that vertical bar, grab the yarn, which should be at the top, and bring that under the vertical bar, and then keep that loop on your hook. So that's our second stitch. Do that twice more onto the next vertical bar, bring the yarn through, next vertical bar, bring the yarn through. So we've got 4, well effectively 3 and our loop, beginning loop, 4 simple stitches to begin. They're simple Tunisian crochet stitches. And now we're going to do 4 purl stitches, so hopefully you've practiced this from last week. But just to recap, we bring the yarn down, always bring the yarn down to the front, then put your hook onto the next vertical bar, and then grab the yarn from down here You can just hold the little loop out the way with your thumb, bring that through the vertical bar, and as you come through, hold the stitch on your hook and just give that a little pull just to neaten it off. Don't put it too tight, just neaten it. So that's our first one. We need 3 more. Keep the yarn down the bottom, next vertical bar, bring the yarn through, just give it a little pull. 2, next one, make sure the yarn's at the bottom, bring the yarn through the vertical bar and give it a little neaten up pull. Then the last one, 4, bring that through, every stitch there, we give that little pull. So there we go, we've got 4 Tunisian pearl stitches, and you can tell that because it's like in knitting, you get the little horizontal bar, but it's different to normal knitting because on the back you just end up with, if I bring this in, on the back you just end up with bubbles. So it's not exactly the same as normal knitting. So that does create a nice effect in itself. It's like a little, great for a washcloth. Okay, then we're going to move back to 4 normal Tunisian crochet stitches. So we're going to bring the yarn back up to the top. Just make sure the yarn's back up to the top. Go on to the next vertical bar. And then just bring the yarn through from the top. Well, we want 4 of those. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so we've got 4 normal Tunisian stitches. Now we need 4 purl again. So bring the yarn down to the bottom and under the next vertical bar. Bring that through and give it a little pull. Fingers and thumbs, get out of the way, stop sticking to me. Then make sure the yarn's down the bottom, go through the next vertical bar and do another one. 2, we want 4 of these, so 2, 3, and 4. And then after you've done those 4 purl stitches, we're going to move the yarn back to the top and then do 4 simple stitches. So we just go onto the next bar and grab the yarn from the top. 1, 2. Okay, we're going to do this all the way across, doing 4 simple stitches, 4 purl stitches, all the way to the end, okay? There's our 4 simple. Then bring the yarn back down to the bottom to do your next set of purls. Okay, so just coming up to the last 4 vertical bar stitches, and we're going to end on 4 simple stitches. So we started on 4 and we're going to end on 4. So just move my stitches back over. I'm going to do my last 4 simple stitches, making sure the yarn's at the top. So 1, 2, 3, and remember with the last stitch always make sure to put your project level with your crochet hook so you know which is your last vertical bar, because your last vertical bar is literally right on the end, and if it's slightly distorted you might work through that little chain 1 by accident. So just make sure it's level and lined up with your previous vertical bars so you know which ones to work through. 4, I don't even know what I'm counting. 4, there we go. So it should have a look a little something like this, and then we're going to do a reverse row, which is exactly the same as before. You just need to remember to do your chain 1 at the beginning. So just come for the first loop only at the very beginning. It's very important that you do that so it lines up at the end. And then it's pull through 2 until you get to the end. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, don't forget to yarn over, pull through 2, and just do that all the way back to the beginning till you've got 1 loop again. And your reverse rows are always the same, they never change. Pull through 2, it's coming back to the end. It's like you're creating a stitch each time. There we go, and so you've got one loop left on your hook, and your reverse row has created your next lot of vertical bars. You see them here? So you've got more little ladder stitches, as I call them. And now this is a good time to make sure it measures up with your zip. So I know it's a bit time consuming if it doesn't measure up and you've got to do it all again, but at least it means that you're not going to end up with making it too big or too small. So let's get our zip in. Let's put that down there, and then we can measure up and make sure it's the same length without stretching it. Just let it relax. And as you can see, that end lines up where your zip is, and that's where the end is. So you've got little overlapping bits either end. So I know this now fits for my zip. So when I did the chains, if you remember, it was quite long, it was much longer. So measuring when you've just chained is very inaccurate unless you do the foundation chain method. Doing a foundation chain where you're creating literally your first row with your chains is a lot more accurate than just measuring with your chains. So I do recommend doing a few rows before measuring up with your zip. So there we go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do 2 more sets, and each set is 1 set of Tunisian stitches and 1 reverse row. So I'm going to do 2 more sets, effectively 4 more rows, backwards, reverse, backwards, forward, reverse, forward, reverse, 4 more rows, 2 more sets of doing the same set of stitches. So again, we're going to start this row with simple stitches. We ignore the first vertical bar right on the end there underneath the loop on our hook. Find the next vertical bar you created on your last reverse row. Go onto there. Be careful not to grab anything on the back. You literally just want to grab that, go underneath that one loop. Bring the yarn through, 2, next vertical bar, 3, and next vertical bar. I mean, if you hate doing purl stitches, you can make the whole bag with just simple stitches if you want to. You don't have to do the purl stitches. I'm just doing it to do the basket weave. But now we need 4 purl stitches. Now the vertical bars here are harder to see because you've got this horizontal loop in the way. So find your horizontal loop, and the vertical bar is just above it. It can be a little bit small, but remember to bring the yarn down before you do your purl stitches. There's our horizontal bar and our vertical bar is just above it, and it becomes more noticeable once you've got your hook underneath. Do the same thing again, grab the yarn, bring it through, give it a little pull. We want 4 of those. So again, just do this all the way across. I'm going to do this for 2 more sets, that's 4 more rows of starting off with the simple stitch, 4 simple, then 4 purl, ending 4 simple. 3. So I should do that and I shall come back. So I'm going to do this row, then a reverse, then I'm going to do another row, then 1 more reverse. Okay, 2 more sets. Back to simple stitches. Okay, so I've completed those 2 more sets, which is 4 more rows. So each sort of unit is going to be made up of 6 rows in total. So you should have a little something that looks like that. See, 1, 2, 3 lots of the pearls appearing. So if it looks like this. And now what we're going to do is we're going to alternate. Instead of starting off with simple stitches and ending with simple stitches, we're going to start off with purl stitches and end with purl stitches. So again, we ignore this first vertical bar, but we need to bring our yarn down straight away. And it helps at the very beginning when we're trying to find that second vertical bar, just to move it over to this side so we can see where our first vertical bar is that we need to work under. And again, we're going to do just 3 purl stitches because we've already got our first loop here. It's our first stitch. So I'm only going to do 3 purls at the beginning. So 1, keeping the yarn at the bottom. Make sure I'm going under that properly. 2 and 3. So we only do 3 purls at the beginning because we've already got that first loop. But then we're going to do normal stitches. So we can see we're up to our purls now. We're going to do normal stitches this time. So again, find the horizontal bar, and our vertical bar is just above it because it gets a bit smaller, harder to see. We do 4 simple stitches. 1, 2, 3, and 4 this time, and then we're going to swap back to where last time we had simple stitches. Now we're going to do 4 purl stitches. So bring the yarn down and do 4 purl. We're going to do this all the way across, and we're going to do this for 3 sets, so 6 rows in total, starting off with purl stitches this time and ending on purl stitches. And that is what creates the alternating pattern of the basket weave. So I'm going to do that, then I shall come back. So it's 3 sets made up of 6 rows. So we go forward, reverse, forward, reverse, forward, reverse. Okay, starting off with purl stitches. And you're going to end on purl because last time we ended on simple. So end on purl. Okay, so I shall do that, and then I shall come back. Otherwise I won't have enough time to show you how to turn it into a bag. Oh, I've just done a simple one. See, that's me not paying attention. Keep that yarn at the bottom. Now back to simple. Okay, so I've done 3 sets of the alternating pattern. So I've started off with the purl stitch and then I did the simple stitch. Exactly the same as these first 3 sets, but I've just started off differently, so you end up with this alternating effect between stitches. So I've done 6 rows on these 3 sets. So that's going forward, reverse, forward, reverse, forward, reverse. And now I'm going to start my next row with the simple stitch. So we're going to go back to just doing the simple stitch. And you're going to repeat that twice more. So we've done these 2 sort of sets already. We've done this pattern set here, this pattern set here. We're going to do it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more times. So that's going to be, it's going to be a set of 3 there, 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 and it's just alternating, starting off. So the next one for us is going to be starting off with the simple stitch, and you start off with a purl stitch, and then back to the simple, back to purl, and you're going to end the same rows as your very first rows. So our very first ones we started off with a simple stitch, and that's what we're going to end on here. So you end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cubes, so 7 by 9 cubes. Okay, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to finish the other rectangle, and then we're going to look at putting the zip in and lining as well. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. And like I said, if you're new to the basket weave stitch, do go back to last Friday's video where I show this stitch in much more detail, although I only do 2 sets instead of 3. I've done 3 here because I've used a slightly thicker yarn, so it makes a more square basket weave. So you can experiment those, see what you like doing. So I'll do that and then I shall come back. Okay, so hopefully you've repeated that pattern. So you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 square blocks sets high by the original 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it should look a little something like that. And I've just alternated between starting with the simple stitch and starting with the purl stitch. And I've done 6 rows per little square unit, 6 rows. So that's 3 sets. That's going forward, reverse, forward, reverse, forward, reverse. You've got 1, 2, 3 sets. Okay, so how do you finish it off? Well, I'm just coming up to the very end, and I'm just pulling through 2, pulling through 2, pulling through 2, and there we go. So you should end on a simple stitch start, ending simple stitch. And what we're going to do now is we just slip stitch to the end. So we're going to go into our second vertical bar as normal. Let's go into your second vertical bar and keep the yarn at the top as if doing a normal simple Tunisian stitch, and then just slip stitch. So bring that through the loop on your hook as well. Then go onto the next vertical bar, grab the yarn, bring it under and bring it straight for the loop on your hook. And we're just going to slip stitch like this all the way across. And then these ones straight for the loop on your hook. And if you find it easier, you can swap to a normal crochet hook as long as it's the same size, 5 millimeters. If you find it easier, but just go under the vertical bar as normal, as you've been doing for the whole pattern. Grab the yarn as if doing a normal Tunisian stitch, and then bring it for the loop on your hook. So you're only ever working with one loop. That's how we finish off the top. So I'm going to do that all the way to the end. It's coming up to the last couple of stitches. And then the very last one, make sure we go through the right bit, the right vertical bar, and then slip stitch, and there we go. So it creates this really nice finishing across the top, so you don't get those vertical bar loops standing out. So hopefully you got something that looks a little something like this, and we need 2 of these. And the reason I've done 2 separate ones rather than one long piece is because I want these to be identical, and I want to have this nice slip stitch finish at the top for both sides. So continue making the second one, and then what we're going to do now is we're going to work on the lining next. We're going to work out our lining size. So let's choose some material. I'm going to pop onto Instagram and see what you guys have suggested from my my photo post on which material to use, because I've got quite a lot of material to choose from. I had a bit of an addiction of buying some fabric fat quarters last year, so I'm going to have a little think about which one to use, and then I shall come back and tell you what to do. Okay, so these were the colours that were voted from my post on Instagram, and I really don't know which one to choose. I think this one here got the most votes. I think I got 2 votes, and what I like about this fabric actually is it's got, if you can see there, slightly gold sparkly flower, so that's really nice. So let's see how well that will go with the purple. Do you think that will go with the purple? I think purple and purple might be a little bit too strong, but I do like that one as well. Blue might clash. I agree, that creates a nice effect, same as the basket weave. I'm really indecisive, but I've run out of light for today, so although this video will just carry on, I'm going to come back tomorrow and start looking for, hopefully I'll have chosen a fabric by then, and we can work on the lining. But what you need to do to just calculate how much you need is you need to put these face down. So I can now cut my yarn, actually just cut that. I've still got loads of it yet left, and just pull that loop through. So there we go, that secures that. So we're going to lay both of these down right side down, so the wrong side's facing, although I love the wrong side as well. And make sure that one's upside down and back to front like that. So we're just going to lay these down, so if I can get this better in camera view. And then we need to, if I was going to choose this material for example, we just need to lay out some material and put these on the top. So, serious lack of space. So lay these down on top of your material, and what you need to do is we're going to cut around our shape, but we need to allow at least a good inch either side. So you want at least an inch, you see where these folded lines are, about an inch either side, top and all the way around, including the bottom down here as well. At least an inch, because that's going to be our little hem. And if you've got a sewing machine, this is brilliant, that's going to be really useful. You can hand sew it, but we're just going to cut this shape out first, and then I'll show you what to do next. But until tomorrow, I've run out of light for today, so I'm going to leave that for now. Okay, so I've finally chosen some material. I've gone for the purple in the end to match the purple of the bag. But what I've done now is I've cut out my piece of material, and it's about just under an inch bigger than the actual 2 pieces put together. So lay them down like this, and then you just want about just under an inch around each edge around here. And what we're going to do now is we are going to sew our little bag. So I'm just going to put this together, right sides together, so you've got the wrong side facing if you have a wrong side. Okay, so I've just put the camera down. I'm just going to iron this in half now. So I've got right sides together. I'm just going to iron this into place. Make sure I've got a nice crease at the bottom. Then what we need to do is we need to sew around the edge. So you need to get your bag, one of your pieces of your bag, and just measure. If you've got some little tailor's chalk, that's brilliant as well. But you can also use a pencil, because it's only going to be on the inside. And just mark where your bag goes at each side, at each edge. And what we're going to do is we're just going to mark either corner here because what we're going to do is to sew down this edge and this edge the other side as well, but we don't want to sew across the top, so don't sew across the top yet. But you want to start sewing about just the inch from the edge. So where we've measured this is flat against the fold at the bottom, and we've got just under an inch, about 2 centimeters in from the top, and that's where we want to start sewing from here, because we're going to fold this down and hand sew this at the end. So we want to sew in by about 2 centimeters down this edge, and the same the other side as well. And you can either do that with a sewing machine or hand sew. So I'm going to do that, then I'm going to come back. Okay, so I'm just doing a normal straight simple stitch on the sewing machine. You can hand sew as well, and this is about 1 centimeter in from the edge, and it's about 2 centimeters down from top, but just measure around your project, so that's the best thing to do. So let's go and have a go. I haven't used my sewing machine for ages. And yes, I am very slow on my sewing machine. Sewing is not my thing. Okay. So that's one side, and then I'm just going to repeat that for the other side as well. Okay, so I've finished sewing the other side as well. So I've just left a space at the top. It's quite important to leave that because we're going to be folding this over, so we can get a nice crisp edge at the top. We're going to hand sew that. So the next thing to do now is join your bag together. So making sure you've got your nice slip stitches at the top on either side. We are going to put them right side face down and then put that on top. So you've got wrong sides together, and then we're just going to join. We're going to sew down this edge, sew along the bottom, and sew up this edge. Okay, so let's do that now then. So we're just going to get a piece of the same yarn we've been using to make the bag, and this, what I do to know how much yarn I usually measure that edge twice, the bottom twice, and then that edge twice, and just a little bit more. That should be enough, hopefully. Okay, so let's get my yarn tapestry needle, and I've got my wrong sides together, and I've got the slip stitches I want at the top. So making sure you've got it all the right way around, we're going to sew this together. Okay, and you just need to do it as neatly as you can. Leave a bit of a tail, and then just go in the other side. So I'm just doing this as neatly as I can, basically. Trying to match up as much as I can. You don't have proper stitches to match up, so you just need to just do it by eye. And I'm just looping it. I'm going to the bottom to the top, the bottom to the top. So I'm going to do that all down this side, along the bottom and up the other side. Remember to leave the top open because it's a bag. And so I shall do that, and then I shall come back. Okay, so I'm just coming up to the other side. It's a good idea when you sort of about halfway through one of the sides is just to make sure that these ends line up, so you can adjust your sewing accordingly, so you don't end up with one side longer than the other, which I've had to do a little bit, and then just try and do it as neatly as you can. And what I've been doing as well is with the tail ends at these bottoms here, I've just tucked them on the inside as I was sewing, because they'll just be hidden on the inside under your lining. But there we go, there is the well, almost finished bag. So we sewed up the edges, and I still love the inside of this. It's almost too nice to cover up with the lining, so you could just leave it like this and have a really nice interesting inside to your bag. But what we're going to do now is we're going to join the zip net. So we're not going to join the lining, we're going to do the lining last. But you can always just double check that this fits inside your bag to make sure it's the right size. What I've done is I've actually trimmed off the excess along the sewing, so it's just a little bit closer to our sewing, and then you can just put it inside and see how well it fits. This is actually still a little bit too big, and I can see that if I line this up that it's, put that to the edge, just a little bit too big here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to re-sew. I've just made a little mark along here. I'm just going to re-sew along there, and then I'm going to see hopefully if that fits, because at the moment it does go in quite well, but it's just a little bit too baggy. So if I open this up on the inside, it's just a little bit too baggy. You can see there a little bit of excess. So I'm just going to readjust this by just making a little mark there and sewing along there, and then cutting off the excess, and then that should fit. Again, leaving the space at the top so we can fold it over. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to hide my tails, and then I shall come back and work on the zip. Okay, so once you're happy with your material, make sure it fits nice and snug in there, and you can keep adjusting it until it lies flat. Then what you want to do is just fold over the top edges. This is why we leave a bit of space at the end, and you want to fold it so that the wrong sides are together, because you want a nice crisp clean finish on your bag. And you need to make sure that a couple of stitches are still showing of your crochet, and this is easier than it looks, so don't worry too much, because crochet is stretchable, so you can still stretch it a little bit into place. But you just need to make sure that there are a couple of stitches above where your fold is. Okay, so now once you've got your lining sorted, I'll take that out, and we're going to work on the zip next. Okay, so it's about the 2 centimeters, like I said. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take a length of the same coloured yarn that we've been using for our bag, and it needs to be about double the length and a bit more, so about 3 times the length of your zip. And then we're going to split this to make it thinner, so you can use proper sewing thread if you want to. I'm just going to split this in half to make it a bit thinner. Okay, so I've just made that a bit thinner. I've split it in half. Like I said, you can use normal sewing thread if it's the same colour. I just don't happen to have the same colour as my bag, and I've threaded that onto a normal sewing needle, so not a yarn needle, just a normal one. And then what we're going to do is we are going to create some stitches along the edge of our zip. So the first thing to do is to come up next to our zip, so just next to it, and just bring that through. Leave a bit of a tail. Then we're going to create little stitches all the way along our zip, and about 1 centimetre in length. It's about 1 centimetre in length. But we're not going to go too close to the zip, because we need to allow the zip to open. So make it the same distance of your zip. You see the edge of your zip there? That's about the width. That's about the sort of width we want to, the size we want to come along. So it's going to sew down from there about 1 centimetre, and that should line up with where our zip is coming, because our zip needs to be allowed to travel along still. So if we go too close to this part here, then the zip won't be able to open. So then we're going to go along 1 centimetre from underneath, keeping it lined up to about there. And then we're going to go back to this stitch. Okay, and we're going to do that all the way down the edge of our zip. Like so. So I'm going to do that all the way down to the bottom of my zip till I get to this part here. Okay. Okay, so I just got to the end, and I've just got to the little plastic bit at the end. I'm just going to do a little mini stitch. There we go. And then what I'm going to do is do exactly the same on the other side, and I'm just going to go straight over here with my yarn, and then crate stitches down there, but I've actually run out of yarns. I'm probably going to introduce some new yarn. So just do exactly the same along the other side, making sure not to get too close to the center zip. Make sure it's the same width as your zip, so your zip can travel down. You can test it as well, so it opens okay. So I should do that, and I shall come back and then show you how to crochet in the zip. Okay, so I've done that the other side as well, and then I'm just going to double knot my tail ends together. Just going to sew these up further beyond where the zip is. Just do a little knot there. So it's just gone beyond the zip, but it's still on the bottom. This is the underneath. I'll do the same for this side. Then I can double knot them. So if I double knot them before the zip won't open. Okay, there we go. And then I can double knot them the other side of the zip. Okay, just loosely. There we go, like so. Then my zip can open. Okay, don't worry, all that'll be hidden on your bag. And just make sure your zip opens. And now we need to put it in our bag. We're going to do that before we add the lining. Okay, so the next thing to do is we need to work out how many stitches we've made along here. And I've got 21 stitches, or 20 and a little one. And how many stitches we had along here, and we had 36. Then we just need to divide 21 by 36 and see what we get. So let's do that. So it comes to 1.7, so it's about 2. So we're going to do roughly 2 of our stitches on our bag to 1 stitch on our zip. So first thing to do is to join our yarn again. So I'm going to put my hook into that first stitch. And then just take your normal yarn that you've been working with your bag. I'm just going to join that in our first stitch on one side of our bag. Bring that through. Can't seem to bring this through. There we go. We're going to secure that with a little chain 1. Just tighten that into place. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into the stitch on the bag, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the back loop. See these slip stitches we created at the end of our bag? Instead of going through the whole slip stitch under both loops, I'm just going to go under the back loop. Just a bit fiddly on the first one. Okay, so just gone into the back loop only, and it's going to create a nicer finish at the end. And then we're going to divide the 2 stitches on our bag to 1 stitch on our zip. So we're going to go into the first stitch on our zip, bring the yarn round, keeping our tail ends out of the way. A little bit fiddly at first, but bring that through the stitch on your zip and then through that back loop. We're going to secure that with a single crochet, or in UK terminology, a double crochet. Then we're going to go into the next stitch, but again, instead of going under both loops, we're going to go under just the back loop, like so. And I'm going to go into the same stitch on the zip because it's 2 stitches per one on the zip. Okay, because we've got more stitches on the bag than we have on the zip. You can make smaller stitches on the zip, but it just makes it harder to work into, so do a single crochet. Then the next stitch, again, instead of going under both loops, we're just going to go under that back loop. Then we're going to go into our next stitch on the zip. And just do this all the way across. Do a single crochet. Then the next back loop, but the same stitch, that's our second one. Single crochet, next back loop, but the next stitch on our zip. Single crochet. It just creates a nicer finish. So just do this all the way across till we get to the other end. starts looking a little something like that, and just make sure that your zip, just make sure your zip is opening okay. Yep, that's good. So I'm just going to repeat that all the way across to the other end, and then we'll move over to the other side. Okay, so when you get to the end, just double check that it's not bunching up in any particular places. If it does sort of start doing this a little bit too much, you may just need to adjust your stitches, how many you're doing. You can just do it by eye, even you use pins if you want to make sure that your zip stays nice and level. What we're going to do now though is we're going to carry on. We're just going to go over to the other side. So I'm going to just tuck the tail ends down there, and then I'm just going to slip stitch into the end and move over to the other side and do the same thing the other side. So just fold that under, find that first little stitch to the other side and do the same thing again. Be a little bit fiddly at first, wondering whether it might be an idea to just slip stitch into there and go to this next stitch. It's a bit easier. Get to that tiny little one, bring that through and do the same thing again the other side. There we go. Going into the back stitch, then into the stitch on the zip, just tucking it down as you go. Okay, so I'm going to do that along this edge, and then I'll come back and show you the finished zip, and then we can put our lining in. We're pretty much there. Okay, so I've just got to the other end as well, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slip stitch in the very end just to join, and then as you finish, some cut our yarn, pull that through. As you finish, you just need to make sure you tuck these ends inside. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to open our zip, and we're going to turn our bag inside out, because this is where we're going to tidy up our ends. So turn your bag inside out, and what we're going to do now is we're just going to use these tail ends here and secure these ends into our bags. What we're going to do is we're going to sew these in and just make sure that they run either side of your bag like so. Just sew those into place. Same for the other end as well, just make sure they're secured. They're not as important as these beginning ends, because these are the ones a bit more difficult. So I'm just going to sew these into place, and then we're going to look at sewing our zip down. So you've got this big flap left, you see. We're just going to sew that down right on the edge, making sure that it doesn't come through the other side, and then we're going to put our lining in. Okay, and it's going to hide all that, so it'll be nice. And there we go. So I've just secured those a lot neater. I actually untied the knot first and then sewed it into the fabric and then double knotted it to finish, and all that will be hidden underneath your lining, so don't worry about that. I was going to do that for the other side as well, neaten that off. Okay, so we are pretty much coming to the end of our project. So I've still got my bag inside out, and what we're going to do now is we're going to get our lining and we're going to turn this the right way round. So I'm going to turn it the right way around, and yeah, I stuck in a little homemade label. There's a video that I made to show you how to make your own fabric labels. I literally just printed this on my printer. So if you want to go check out that video, I'll put the link in the description below, and if I forget, do remind me. But what we're going to do is fold over the edge by about 2 centimeters. Hopefully you've already worked that out. So we've got our bag the right way around, and we're going to pop our bag that's still inside out on the inside. Okay, so this is covering our bag. We can get this in. Put our hand inside. Okay, and then what is a good idea is we are going to, might be a good idea just to pin the edges into place. So we're just going to line up our edges and pin those into place, just to make sure that we're sewing it nice and equally. So I'm going to get some pins. I'm just going to pin those edges into place. Okay, so I've just pinned those edges into place, and what we're going to do now is you may want to just pin your sides into place. Don't worry if it's all bunched up on the inside, we just need to sew it. So we're going to hide all these horrible edges just underneath where our purple sewing is. It's a good idea just to probably pin this into place as well. So I'm just going to pin this so it's nice and level, and then I shall come back. I put a pin there, pin there, pin there. Do the same the other side. Okay, so I've pinned that into place as neatly as I can, and now all we need to do is to get some more of our sewing yarn. So again, I've split my yarn that I made the bag with in half, but you can use normal sewing thread if you have purple sewing thread. And then we're going to get a normal sewing needle, and then we're going to sew our lining in. Okay, so this is about 3 times the length of my bag, this piece of yarn, so hopefully it'll be long enough. And if we start on the end, okay, let's refocus. Okay, so I think we got a little pin in place. I'm going to start about here, I think, and I bring the yarn needle on the inside in between my project and my sewing, and then the idea is to actually invisibly sew. So I'm just going to take that pin out, just keep stabbing myself with it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to bend this over, and you see we've got our little hem. We're going to sew into our hem only. So let's just bring that in. Leave a bit of a tail. So it's not coming up to the other side, it's just coming through the hem. And then I'm going to sew into the zip as neatly as I can, just underneath where the purple is. It's quite hard to do on camera. And then I'm going to come back onto the hem, just grab a bit of the hem, and then I'm going to grab a bit of the zip again, just underneath that purple. Okay, grab a bit of the zip, and I'm going to do that all the way around, just grabbing a bit of the zip and just folding over my hem, just folding over this hem, and then grabbing a bit of the hem. Okay, and then what that will do is it's not coming through to the other side, but it is sewing the two together, but it's grabbing the hem rather than the whole of the bag. So it doesn't matter how messy your stitches are, which is rather good. So now I'm going to grab a bit of the zip again. Not to get that knotted. Grab a bit of the zip again, and then just fold your project down and then sew into a bit of the hem, but it's not showing the other side, so make sure you're not coming through the other side. Okay. And then grab a bit of the zip again. I'm going to do that all the way around in one set. So, and then this will hopefully create a nice neat finish. It will hide the edge of that zip, and we'll see how it turns out. So let's just keep doing that. Bit of the zip, take out the next pin, fold down your project and grab a bit of the hem. Try and keep it close to where you last sewed into it as well. It's okay, and just make sure you're not coming through the other side. So I shall do this, and then I shall come back. Okay, so I've done that all the way around, sewn it all the way around, and then when I'm back at the beginning, I'm just going to take my tail ends and tie them nice and tight so they hide just on the inside there. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hide these tail ends as we would any tail ends on our project. So I'm going to get a normal yarn needle. I'm just going to sew to the front, and then I'm just going to go through a few stitches as neatly as I can so you can't really see it. Then just trim down the excess like that. Okay, I'll do that for the other one. Then all that's left to do then is to turn our bag inside out and hope for the best. See what it looks like. Making this on camera has been quite challenging because it basically has to go right first time. So I'm just going to finish off this tail end. Okay, trim that down. Okay, so that's it's inside out at the moment, and it looks quite cool that way around actually. But what we're going to do is we're going to turn this the other way around. Let's see what it looks like. Make sure all our corners are in. So there we go. There's the lining on the inside. So you've still got this line of stitching around there which doesn't look amazing. You probably may be able to just, if you lowered that down, you could put your lining over the top of that and hide that as well, or you could actually use white yarn instead if you wanted to. However, you'd end up with more of a gap between your zip and your crochet, so kind of depends on what look you're looking for. But there we go, that's a nice little simple lined bag, and all that's left to do is to make sure the zip works. There we go. So zipped up like so. So there we go, that's the end of my little basket weave zipper bag crochet tutorial with a very simple lining inside. And so there we go. I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. Hope you managed to follow along. It's been a bit of a crazy tutorial actually. I've never done this much sewing and putting together. It's been quite a little bit stressful. But this zip is actually better than the last one I did in terms of it's easier to open, and I think that's just making sure that I didn't do those zip stitches too close to this bit here. But there we go. So I shall see you soon for some more crochet fun. Thanks for watching guys. Bye. Please do that.